Hello everyone, and a very good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are joining us from. My name is Charlene and I will be your host for this webinar today. Thank you very much for joining us to discuss how to enhance your institution's career service provision and explore Epigeum's new online course, Skills and Attributes for Career Success, Developing an Enterprising Mindset. We should be taking about 45 minutes to an hour of your time today, including an opportunity for a designated question and answer session at the end. If you are familiar with the GoToWebinar software that we are using, you might know that there is a questions option as part of the panel on the right-hand side of your screen. If you would like to ask questions as and when they occur to you, please feel free to type them up and send them over via the panel there. And we're quite happy to receive those as we're going through, and we will answer them towards the end. We'll also be making a recording of this webinar available early next week. That will be on our YouTube channel if you wish to view it again or share it with colleagues. At the moment, you are all on mute because the feedback can sometimes affect the quality of the sound. So if you do have any questions or issues, please alert us in the questions panel on the right-hand side of your screen. So firstly, just a few introductions. We are joined today by Tom Davie and Dr. John Howden-Evans, who will be leading the discussion, and I'll let them introduce themselves now, starting with Tom.
Good morning or good afternoon everybody, I'm Tom Davie. As you can see from the introduction slide, I was until fairly recently head of Sunderland Futures and the Careers Employability Service at the University of Sunderland. Previous to that I was Deputy Head of Careers at Durham University. I've had 35 years of experience of working in careers work, 22 years in higher education, and have had the privilege to have worked with a lot of students but a lot of other universities through my other sort of role as a national and sometimes international trainer for the Association of Graduate Careers Advisory Services. I'm conscious that one of the attendees today is from Western Cape. I did a week's work at University of Cape Town, incidentally, 7 years ago, and was fantastically impressed with the work in careers that is happening across South Africa as well. But that's basically me. I've also written for Epigeum before. I wrote a career planning program similar to this in some ways, but that was aimed at PhD students 10 years ago, and that's still in publication, although it's been updated by recent authors. So I'll hand you over to the very capable hands of John to introduce himself now.
Thanks very much, Tom, and hello everyone. I'm John Howden-Evans. I'm currently the head of the employability service here at Swansea University. I am a qualified solicitor and I came to Swansea 14 years ago to teach law graduates, just at the time that the market for law graduates hit a really rough patch and our students were finding it really difficult to get graduate level employment. So I did a lot of work unexpectedly early on in my career here, working with employers to look at the skills that they were looking for from our graduates and the things that we could do to help support the graduates get the jobs they were looking for. So I kind of fell into employability, and for the last 3 years I've led the service here at the university. Back to you, Charlene.
Thank you. Finally, that's me, Charlene, on the left-hand side of your screen. I'm the product manager for the studying portfolio at Epigeum, and I work in the marketing team to help universities promote our courses. So just a quick look at the agenda before we get started. First, we'll look at Epigeum itself and our online approach and how we put together our transformative online courses through a unique collaborative model. Then we will move on to Tom and John's presentations, and they will tell us more about the current challenges with regards to careers provision and how we should be preparing for an ever-changing global work environment. Following this, I will provide a brief demonstration of our newest online course, Skills and Attributes for Career Success, and we will wrap up with a Q&A session at the end, As I mentioned at the beginning, please do feel free to type up your questions in the panel on the right-hand side as the webinar progresses. So now I will give you a quick overview of Epigeum. We were founded in 2005 as a spin-out originally from Imperial College London. Our two founders created the company in response to what they felt was a lack of timely support for researchers. They saw this as an opportunity to work with universities to create accessible and interactive supported materials for researchers. Over the years, we have expanded to courses for students and for staff. We were acquired by Oxford University Press a few years ago. Oxford University Press is a division of the University of Oxford, so is a non-for-profit organisation in the higher education context. We have created over 92 online courses across 23 programmes, and we currently have 4 in development. The studying portfolio of courses covers the entire student journey, from support with transitioning into higher education to career development, writing skills and plagiarism. A few of the studying courses are listed here. These resources reflect the importance of being proactive about the student experience in higher education and help ensure universities are providing an environment to enable students to thrive and get what they want out of their time at university. Our newest course, Skills and Attributes for Career Success, has been designed to encourage students to develop key skills and attributes and foster an enterprising mindset to help with their future career development. Here you can see the topics that the course covers, including negotiation skills, planning, problem solving, leadership, commercial awareness, creative and innovative thinking. And this course aims to support the development of key enterprise skills for the workplace, provide clear links between the skills and how they may be applied to work, convey how the skills can be developed at university, and help students to articulate their skills and experience to potential employers. Later on in the webinar, I will give you a quick whiz tour around the course so you can get a feel as to what it looks like. Epigeum is an increasingly globally focused organisation, and we have worked with over 280 universities across 30 different countries worldwide. This is a map to show you the international spread of universities using our courses. I would like to briefly touch on implementation here, which is how the course can be used at your institution, and this can be in a number of different ways. Firstly, it can be used as a standalone academic course. You can supply the participants with an online multimedia-rich course immediately at the time and place they need it, so this would be in self-study mode. Secondly, we have the option for tutor-supported online courses. And finally, it can be used as part of a blended learning program. Typically, how this works is that participants are given access to the online course ahead of a workshop or a group gathering, and then the workshop would really focus on consolidating and applying that material. The courses can also be implemented in all 3 modes at once. If you choose to use any of our courses, Epigeum has a technical team who will help you integrate the course from pre-installation through to promoting the course internally to your participants. This team ensures your university gains maximum benefit from using our online provision with ongoing support, technical training and advice whenever you need it. So hopefully this has given you a bit of background to Epigeum and how we put our online courses together. I'd be happy to take any questions on the process, so please put them into the questions panel. I'm going to hand over to Tom now, who's going to present to you.
Thanks, Charlene. Just as a sort of domestic thing, everyone, I will be asking Charlene, as John will be, to change the slides over, so you'll hear me say change to the next slide as we go along. I've introduced myself, so Charlene, if you could move it on to the next slide, please, that would be great. This is a quote that I produced myself, and I'm not being self-indulgent by saying that, for a blog that I wrote for Charlene and for Epigeum relating to this course just a couple of months ago. And I thought it was important to take this out of the blog and put it into the context of today's presentations. because really what this course is doing, or what its aims and objectives are, is to empower students to succeed, just as your institutions and you in your particular roles are basically wanting students to succeed as well. But I think it's more than that. It's a win-win-win situation, not just for your existing students, but also for the employers that you work with, for the continuous professional development of the students and graduates who will leave your organizations, leave your institutions, leave your medical schools, leave your agricultural colleges, etc., and go on to work either in those professions or in other areas in the future. Because I think we must recognize, or I'm sure you do recognize, that with this millennial generation that we've got, those students may have 7 or 8 different jobs in the future. And I know John subscribes to this as well, that a lot of the jobs that your students, our students, go into may not be the same jobs that they will be working in 15, 20, 30 years' time. In fact, some of those jobs that they will be working in the future may not even exist now. So this is a course not just for the present, but for the future. I think we all know that students come to universities with certain levels of baggage, certain levels of career and personal maturity, whether they are younger students or whether they are mature students, part-time students, distance learners, etc. They also come not necessarily understanding or being focused as to what they want to do in the future, and that's perfectly understandable and perfectly acceptable. A lot of them will use their university career services, but some of them will choose not to for whatever reasons, or will not want to engage in a one-to-one process. So this course, and that's why I've put on this slide the skills and attributes for career success in yellow, almost like a sun, is really focusing on providing 24/7 access to career planning and interactive career planning based on the learning styles of those students. And therefore it can be embedded within the curriculum, it can be embedded within any existing skills and attributes development and programs that you've got, in order to develop the psyche of the student as and when they are wanting to engage in it. And as I say as and when, because they may want to dip in and out of different elements, different modules of this program at different times of their education, as it is pertinent to their needs and expectations at the time. These statistics from the Association of Graduate Recruiters are just recent, as you can see, from 2017. And for those of you who are attending this webinar in the UK, these may not seem particularly unusual or extraordinary in any way. But I think it does, obviously taking into consideration the demographics of attendees from other parts of the world. The statistics might be different, the percentages might be different, but I firmly believe from my knowledge and experience that the actual processes of opting for career change, seeking better pay as a means of leaving one organisation. I used to talk to students, and still do now, at Newcastle University in the North East, about students being butterflies. So they would jump from one occupational leaf or one organisational leaf to another as they wanted something else and something different to experience, to flavour, to taste. And I think this is quite pertinent whether it's in South Africa or in the UK or in Australia. And also relevant to students who are studying medicine or dentistry. They may want to specialise, or they may want to progress in a different way. And the Skills and Attributes for Success course enables those students to continuously assess and evaluate and reevaluate their skills and attributes according to their own specific needs and expectations at the time. And contextualising this and summarising it very briefly, Stephen Isherwood, the CEO of the AGR, says that organisations that retain graduate talent are those that invest in them. Now, this particular quote might actually contradict what I've already said, but I really don't think it does. This course is about partnership, and one of our partners is organisations, employers, whether it's public sector, local authority, commercial, not-for-profit. So employers have this tension about wanting to retain their graduates, to offer them the best career opportunities, the best salary opportunities. But we recognise at the coalface, so to speak, in our universities, that those students may not want to stay with the same organisation or stay in the same career all their lives. But this continuous professional development and self-reflection of skills and talents is something that this course I am passionately committed to and believe in as well. I was sharing with Charlene and John earlier on this morning a pigeon story, and I'll be very brief about it, but where I live in Newcastle, my wife and I saw a very sort of young pigeon nesting almost on the windowsill just a couple of days ago. It looked a little bit frail, and we were a little bit worried our cats were going to catch it, or it was going to fall onto the conservatory roof and fall to its demise. This is a very depressing story, this, isn't it? But it's the left-hand side. And there is, because of the pressures that universities are under at the moment, a tendency sometimes to forget the student or the graduate in terms of the league tables and the benefits of reaching employability targets and etc. But if we are to continue and grow the success of our students, but also to put bums on seats and to grow the success of our universities, we need to be a little bit more gentle with those students. And watching that pigeon just a couple of days ago, it started to learn from its mother who came down next to it. It started to learn from other pigeons flying into the other tree 5 yards away. And now, I don't know where it is, but it's a happy pigeon. And what we want is happy students. Students who've had value for money and who've benefited from the expertise and the learning, but also the career development that they receive at our universities. So our students are in a process of osmosis, I see it as, between moving across the different areas of the labour market. And this course is a longitudinal support, not just a quick fix during their student experience at university. The next couple of slides to do with my experience of writing skills and attributes programs, but also collaborating with senior academics and senior managers in the University of Sunderland and Durham University on skills that are going to lead to the success of our students and graduates. And when you look at this slide and the next one, you'll see that a lot of the actual content of those skills and attributes that we developed at Sunderland and Durham, thank you Charlene, are actually very pertinent and relevant, and actually there might be slightly different words, but are very much the same skills and attributes that we've got on our course here with Epigeum. And I would suggest and believe that they are very similar to the ones that you are developing also. So what we've done, and what Epigeum have been very good at doing, is not only commissioning excellent writers to produce the material on the skills and attributes for success, but also recognizing the needs and expectations of the institutions that you're working in, and producing online material that complements and enhances what you're already doing with your existing skills and attributes development. But just to pose 2 or 3 rhetorical questions to you, and to encourage you to, if you're to look at those questions in the context of this course and program that we're producing, and that you may want to have an experience of looking at either as a sample or hopefully purchasing in the future, and I'll come on to that in a second. How do your institutions, or how do your medical schools or agricultural colleges align the skills and attributes that your students have with employer success? Those students and graduates will already have a skill set. So this is not just about developing, but also enhancing those in as broader context and as broad a way as possible. And I hope you will agree, in fact I'm confident, I'm sure that you will agree, that a lot of the students that come to see us, whether we're academics like John or careers professionals or careers practitioners like myself, those students don't necessarily understand or recognize or value the breadth of experience, the breadth of skills that they've got from voluntary work, part-time work, extra-curriculum activities, from their previous life experiences. And this course helps them to unlock and to reflect and empowers them to do something with those skills in terms of interviews, assessment centres, etc. So how does your institution measure success, but how does it effectively work and collaborate with professional bodies, with employers, with voluntary sector to ensure that our students, your students, get the best possible opportunities with those organisations? So to put that into context, and very quickly to put it into context, I believe this is more not just an evolution but a revolution leading to a win-win-win that I keep referring to student, employer, institutional success. When I first started out in university careers work 22 years ago, it was all about careers guidance, and I'm still a passionate advocate for careers guidance. But as a manager, I've recognised that that isn't enough. And when I was at Sunderland, the opportunity to develop a more career coaching model and to develop and encourage my staff to unlock the potential of those students and to help them to articulate at assessment centres or on a video interview the skills and attributes was quite critical. So we have gone through a revolution from the traditional guidance model to the more revolutionary model of preparing students for work in a much more effective way, because we've got to offer them value for money. They invest their time, their money, especially in the UK, substantial amount of money in their education and their career development, and we have to prepare them for that, and the Skills for Success helps significantly for them to do that. So that's basically just reinforcing what I've said. On the right hand side of the slide you'll see all of the different modules that Charlene alluded to in her introductory slide, and next to it what I've done is I've actually put that this equals employer, student, institutional success. In effect, it offers value for money through continuous partnership and continuous learning of those students. Those of you listening today who are careers advisors will be very aware of the DOTS model, the self-awareness, decision-making, opportunities, lifelong learning and transition learning that students go through, and that process, that cyclical process. And to me that isn't just a cyclical process, but it's also a pyramidal process. If we develop the skills and attributes and encourage students to understand and recognize the acquisition of skills that they're gaining, then that will lead to lifelong learning, career professional development, and finally, going back to what I said before, lead to institutional, organizational, and by that I mean employer and student success. So to conclude with the next slide, please. This is my vision of this. If I was still a head of career service, I would be, as I was when I was working at Sunderland and as a deputy head of Durham, commissioned with auditing what career provision we had, not just in terms of staffing, but in terms of the very expensive but the very effective online resources that we had. And I am completely committed, and obviously I'm biased because I've been involved in this program for two and a half years, like John has been and Charlene. I am completely and utterly convinced that this program is the best thing on the market. There are other skills and reflective skills tools that other organizations produce, or that we produce in-house, and that other careers publishers produce. But this, to me, is really the absolute pinnacle of what we need now and in the future, not just in the UK, but in South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, in order to empower our students. So if I was still ahead of careers, I would be going back, doing that audit with my staff, and then I'd be going to my bosses and saying, I want this, or I'm going to buy this, or I'm going to acquire this. And I would be able to justify it because I know, I am convinced that it would be of benefit to our students, but it would also be of benefit to the institution's long-term as well as short-term success. So that's me finished. Thanks very much for listening, and I look forward to hearing about your questions later on. Over to you, John. Cheers.
Thanks very much, Tom. And I'm going to pick up on some of the points that Tom has made and look at some of the other issues that we're facing in this sector that have all been put into the melting pot when we were looking at developing this course. As Tom said, we've been involved in this for the last 2.5 years. And over that time, what's been fundamental to the development is that it's all about supporting achievement. We've not made any assumptions about institutions or their students. And what's been core to us is treating all students as individuals and ensuring they all have equal opportunities, as these are key as the sector faces continuing scrutiny of ensuring inclusivity, widening access, and as we're moving towards positive outcomes for all our students, irrespective of which country we're based in. Here's a quote from Universities UK earlier this year. So by 2020, they say 74% of new jobs will be in occupations with the highest amount of graduates. So only 3 years away. And against this backdrop, we recognise that those new jobs will be, the majority of them will be graduate level jobs. So as higher education providers, we're all being encouraged to recruit more. Indeed, prospective students are being encouraged to go to higher education. And yet we know we need to prepare these students for job types that in some cases have yet to be defined. And what we're hearing from employers is that we're at a critical stage to ensure that we have clarity on the skill sets that they require. Tom referred to the findings by the Association of Graduate Recruiters and the problems identified in retaining students. But it's a worldwide phenomenon. Only recently the Association of Commonwealth Universities kicked off its program for looking at changing the needs of employment in higher education, recognizing that the development of countries very much depends on the development of talented graduates, and those graduates themselves expect to be able to recoup the investments that they're making. Wherever we are based, our students present a number of issues that they have to overcome, and how we support them in the development of their skills and careers success. Importantly, we have to identify and try and overcome those barriers when they arrive at university. Firstly, they present themselves in an environment that's really noisy. There are so many demands on them when they are trying to move into life as a student. So it's very hard to get the messages across to them. They all see the problems ahead of them and they know those problems need solving, but they will all do it differently. So a little bit like the Rubik's Cube, they will all start it in a different way and have different tactics in order to try and find solutions. And they know that there is a path that they will choose whilst they are studying that will help them identify what the next step is for them as life as a graduate. But it's like they're faced with a number of doors. So they'll make choices early on which door to go through, and they won't necessarily come back to the start if they are finding it hard to navigate. So we need to make the start of their journey as easy as possible. All of us, wherever we are based, are looking at providing this support for our students. And I think one thing that's common in the sector from talking to other heads of service is that we're seeing a shift. Careers advice and guidance is no longer treated as added value. It's actually becoming core to the student's own personal and professional development. So it's not a nice to have, it is an essential. But we recognise that we need some hooks that will engage the stakeholders, and the stakeholders being the university decision makers, the students themselves, and the staff in universities and higher education providers, if there's to be effective engagement. And this is where skills and attributes for career success provides the necessary identification and hooks for each of these stakeholders. So on the next slide, looking at the universities themselves. All universities, as Tom alluded to his experience, and it's similar with mine, all looking for a return on the investments that they're making. And for universities, it's about the graduate destinations and the outcomes. In the UK, we've seen an increase in the last 12 to 18 months on the amount of data we are assessed by. We've always had a destinations survey looking at the job types that graduates are doing 6 months after graduation. This year we've had data looking at the longitudinal earnings outcomes of those students, and more recently we've had the teaching excellence framework. And these data sets are evolving. We move to a new survey shortly on graduate outcomes, which very much mirrors what is happening in Ireland and Australia and other countries. Now, in some of these data assessments, some aspects might be questionable. You can't necessarily say that a high salary means that the graduate has got satisfaction in their career. We can't necessarily say that it's a bad career decision to go volunteering straight after university if it is that volunteering that leads to the career destination the graduate is looking for. But what we do know is that we're being judged by this data. The data is important for student recruitment. Prospective students and those supporting them are making choices based on the comparisons they can identify revealed by the data. And we've also seen in the UK the surveys and data being used for more than one reason. So the graduate destination survey data was a critical component of the teaching excellence framework. So it's important for universities to be able to ensure that they're supporting their students to have these positive outcomes. And on the next slide, there's still the return on investment, but this time from the point of view of the student who's investing both in terms of finance and their time. The cost of study, whether the student pays fees or not, there's going to be an expense. There's an expense of just living as a student. So students will be looking to identify what the return to them is. And it's an investment of their time. Will they be able to combine study at university with work? Will they be able to choose work experience over paid part-time work? What other commitments do they have on their time? Will they be able to engage in the wealth of extracurricular activities that look so impressive on CVs? Or do they have outside responsibilities that limit the spare time they have? What is important here for the return for the student is that they must be able to make informed choices. They must be able to improve the success rate in terms of the applications they're making, be it for work experience, placement, or employment. On the next slide is that of staff. Now you'll be pleased to know this is not my office, but it represents, I think, what we can say the staff in this sector are facing. They're facing more and more demands on their time, more responsibilities to support student academic development and pastoral development. And there is a temptation, and I speak from experience as a law lecturer and a personal tutor for 10 years, there's a temptation to provide information to students rather than engage in the student's actual development. And we are facing more and more students who receive information differently. they're more likely to receive it via YouTube or an electronically accessible platform. There is no one defined learning style, and the team have been really careful to take this into account in terms of the style of the course, which Charlene will be able to demonstrate later. On the next slide, I'm posing a question. When is the best time to start this support? When I first started at university, and I think Tom will have had a similar experience probably 14, 15 years ago, the majority of students we were seeing thinking about their career development were final year students. So they perhaps were getting to their exams or indeed had finished their final exams and were then wondering what they should be doing next. A recent survey in the UK looking at how we use the Higher Education Achievement Record. Now this is an attempt to standardise the students' achievements so that students can move freely out of the UK and compete in a global marketplace to identify with verified data as to what they did at university, all neatly captured in this Higher Education Achievement Record. When there was a survey conducted across the UK to find out the barriers to students using it, the feedback was overwhelming. Students were saying that they were accessing the record far too late. And actually, they found that were positive aspects in this record, and they could actually be in control. But what they needed it was to have it early on in their life as a student. They found that if early on they'd been presented with the record, it would have supported them to reflect on their skills and abilities and to help set them goals. And reflection was the most powerful thing that students were demanding. And more recently, the Association of Graduate Careers Advisory Services has published its findings in respect of student career readiness. And the powerful message from that survey is that students are saying they need the support in terms of employability in the first term of their first year. And these points are relevant to how we have structured skills and attributes for career success. On the next slide, there's a question to consider as to how something like this course could be used. Is it complementary to an existing process, or is it standalone? Indeed, it could be that skills and attributes for career success is a big change for your organization. It could replace what you already have, or perhaps it could be complementary to an existing provision. And whatever your choice, the design of the course offers flexibility into how it's introduced and used. And it's important to remember, and that's what my visual is trying to allude to, is that small changes to an existing process can make big impact. There is a tendency, and I've seen it here in this university and others, that often we go for a big change, but sometimes a big change can cause more problems than it solves. So where you've got existing processes that are established and work with students, then this program could easily be slotted in. And it's important here to highlight that the team behind the program have been really realistic in terms of the timings that it takes to do the various activities and modules, and actually the scoping of those activities so that students find them manageable and that they deliver tangible results as the student progresses. So in conclusion, if we move to my final slide, recently planning my holiday for this year. We're not off to Moscow, but in looking at destinations, I was reminded of a model that we use. Some of you might be aware of it. It's the Moscow model. It stands for the must have, should have, could have, or won't have at this time. Now we appreciate that there are demands on budgets in all universities and higher education providers. But in looking at what is actually going to deliver results for our students, I use this model to say, is it something I must have, should have, could have, or actually I won't have at this time? And that's the thought I'd like to leave you with, and look forward to hearing from your questions at the end of this presentation. Thank you. Back to Charlene.
Thank you very much, both of you. That was a really, really insightful presentation. And yes, if you do have any questions, just type them into the question box and we'll get to you at the end. So now I'm going to start the course demo of our Skills and Attributes for Career Success course. And this is the portal, so you can see here the course outline, so you can see all of the courses that are included in this program. We have, as I said before, introductory section, creative and innovative thinking, leadership skills, commercial awareness, problem solving and decision making, communication and networking, negotiation skills, and effective planning. And this is all around 7.5 hours of content. So I'm just going to give you a walk through the key features and highlights of a typical screen. So at the top of each course, you will find the learning outcomes. And if I click on next, you'll be able to see for this particular course what there is. And towards the end of a course, we will find the course summary, where all of the summary of the course is noted in bullet points, followed by downloadable extension activities and a learning portfolio. There is also a resource bank, which includes a printable and editable glossary found here, and an end of course quiz, always at the end of the course, so students can recap what they have learned throughout the course. Now, moving on to a section within this first course, what does it mean to be enterprising? So here we can see different types of activities that apply, as John said, to different learning styles. Here is a short block of text in clear language that ensures the content is accessible to all students. There are different pods, as we call them, scattered around the 8 courses. So here is a future work pod. We also have pods related to your context that you can modify to your own institutional needs. We also have other pods that refer to useful advice and useful information, where you can pinpoint your students in the right direction to different places within your university. This future work pod is designed to help students consider how the world of work and employability skills may change over time, and emphasize the need for continuous learning and development. This particular screen also includes a reflective activity to get users to consider what they know. And there's also a glossary term that you can click on and it pops up. This also helps students where English is not their first language. And there's also a close activity which asks users to pick the correct word from the drop-down menu. And you will be able to choose the word. Once it's correct, it will turn to green. And they can pick and choose as many times as they want until it's the correct answer. Now moving on to course 2, so creative and innovative thinking. Here you can see there are videos. We have videos throughout the course, and where employers talk about creative and innovative thinking, and it's also accompanied by a transcript underneath for students who may not be able to understand English that well, or who need the script for any other reason. I'm going to play part of this video to you now. You will see that this video has employers talking about the job sectors, as well as they allow us to address different disciplines and industries where relevant.
We encourage people to challenge convention and think differently, to look for improvement ideas and opportunities, and to leave things better than they find them, really. Technology at its heart, our people are very creative, and software development is an art at the end of the day. So their ability to innovate and take things to a whole new level has been core to our success. individuals who have what we call an entrepreneurial spirit.
So as you can see, there are various employers. We also have videos with recent graduates as well, giving their opinions on how they found the process at university with regards to their career service experience. This screen also shows an interactive note-making activity where users reflect on the videos they have just watched and respond to the questions. And then, as with all note-making activities, they can see and print a summary of their answers. Staying in the same module but moving on to a different section, so we're looking at assessing your creative and innovative thinking. There are two interactive activities on this screen. The first is an action maze that asks the users a series of questions, and their answers either direct them to another question or to some feedback. The second is a paint activity, which allows for self-reflection and encourages self-analysis and self-criticism. This is one of the several activities that gives users opportunity for self-reflection. Now moving on to another area of the course with regards to leadership skills. Here we will find a flashcard activity that gives users a short burst of information they need to undertake the knowledge testing of the interactive activity to follow. Underneath the interactive activity gives a scenario, and there are different scenarios and different comics to show different areas that we want to demonstrate. The user can pick a characteristic. This is referring to leadership characteristics. If they are correct, then the answer will turn green. If the answer is not correct, then the space is left blank and they can keep trying, similar to the other drop-down activity I showed you before, until they get it right. Now, application screens in the skills development section gives users the opportunity to apply their learning in a more practical way. So I'm going to show you a section of that now within the commercial awareness module. So here, this screen gives us hints and feedback to typical job interview questions, then gives the user a chance to come up with their own answers to key interview questions. And they can also get advice on what makes a good answer. Now, I hope this has given you a good taste of the course content and some of the pedagogical features with this demonstration. If you do have any questions, then please write them down now, and I will show you the contact details at the end of the webinar. So that is it. I will round up now with some questions, so please post them into the box as and when they occur to you. It looks like we've got one for both of you, either Tom or John, you can answer. How does this differ, this online course, from other online career resources out there in the market?
I think we could both answer that. I'll just answer it briefly. Having had experience of buying and purchasing as a head of service other materials, I think the uniqueness of this is the interaction that you've shown and the varied style and the global ways that it's articulated. You know, you saw there a South African name, I believe. And I think really what we're trying to do is to make this adaptable, as John said, and as I said, to the varying learning styles of the individual people using it, or to the academics using it with our students, or the careers service staff using it with our students. Other materials that other organisations produce isn't as interactive, or one could say as versatile as this.
Just to come in and completely agree with you, Tom, and I think it goes back to, we were recognising here that we needed to develop something that was relevant to all students, not particular groups of students, whether they be undergraduate or postgraduate, and importantly recognizing that each of them will start wherever they feel relevant. So what's a really nice aspect of the course is that it's not linear. Students can start with the most relevant aspect to them, where they need to focus their attention, where they feel they can make the biggest difference early on. So that does separate it quite significantly from what else is available on the marketplace.
Great, thank you very much. There's one more question. How does the course cover what employers of graduates are looking for?
You go first, John. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Tom. We spent a lot of time reviewing in the sector what employers were saying as to why they were finding it difficult to attract and retain the talent, going back to Tom's example from the Association of Graduate Recruiters. But as well as that wealth of knowledge and experience we have, what was important here was over the last 2.5 years, we've worked with employers to ensure that the content and the focus in terms of the syllabus and the learning outcomes actually demonstrates what they are looking for in the next generation of leaders, that they're not just wanting to employ but ensure take ownership of the businesses they join. I think Tom would agree it was really exciting when we saw the videos being filmed as well, and the range of employers who were vocalizing exactly what we'd found. Tom?
Absolutely, that you very correctly and very politely and very articulately took the words out of my mouth on that one, John. I think those short video clips and the example that Charlene gave there showed the commitment by the employers as well to wanting to engage in this, because they see it as valuable. We see it as valuable, that's great. The institutions hopefully see it as valuable, but the employers do as well. So I couldn't agree any more with what you just said, John. Absolutely correct in all accounts.
Great, thank you very much both. Now just moving on to the final slide, I'm going to give you our contact details just in case you had any particular questions. Some of you may have already been in touch with us in regards to some of our online courses, and we can give you a lot more detail in regards to pricing and such, so please do contact us on epigeum@oup.com or by visiting the link underneath epigeum.com/nextsteps/trial, where you can request a free institutional trial of this course if you'd like to get a feel for how it looks for your particular needs. We will also be sending out a recording of this presentation, as I mentioned at the beginning, so you can watch it again and share it with any colleagues you may think will find this of interest. So thank you very much to our presenters, Tom and John. It's been really good to have you both on this webinar today. And thank you very much for the people attending for taking time to listen to us. So I hope you have a good rest of your day, and we look forward to hearing from you. Goodbye, everyone.